Hi, Larry Berman here, and here's what's on my radar this week. Well, Chairman Powell Friday morning spoke, and the headlines were up. He's not been this hawkish since 2018, and we know what happened in 2018. Very possible labor market conditions will approach maximum employment. Possible but not certain for full employment next year. As Delta fades, growth will return. Watching carefully for signs of wage price spirals. These are the headlines that cross the tape. As gold looks like it's breaking out, gets hammered. Equities start to pull back. Large cap tech that was already weak, boom. So, the liquidity that the Fed has provided, it's clear at the November meeting, they're going to start tapering. He's prepping the market for that right now. Large cap tech it's pounding. So, you've got inflation in the focus now. You've got the yield curve flattening. You've got the belly, 2 years, 5 years moving up. We're not tightening. The Fed's not going to raise rates, but the market is now starting to price in that first rate hike before the end of the presumed unwinding of the QE. Never mind unwinding the balance sheet, just less QE between November and mid next year. Already starting to think about pricing in that first rate hike middle of the year. Well, when you talk to a guy like David Rosenberg, and a good friend of mine, who I'm doing the weekly webinar with this week on Thursday, so don't miss that. Tune in Thursday at 7 for that. Make sure you're registered at investorsguidetothriving.com. Rosie and I are going to debate the inflation transitory story. We're going to talk about Fed policy, and we're going to talk about the impact on financial markets. This is a not to be missed weekly. It's very topical. It's really, there's not a lot else on my radar this week except for earnings. And in general, earnings have been very, very good. There's pockets. Where the pockets are hitting, it's all about pressure, supply chains. So it's all inflation oriented. So, bull and bear pick of the week. So I'll tell you some of the things we've been nibbling on this week is sold out JP Morgan again as an example. We sold out some of our US energy names that were really pushing on the high end of ranges, and we rolled exposure and more exposure into Brazil, Petrobras. I bought China Petrol. I'm looking around the world to sell what looks expensive on an equity basis, and looking for the areas that have been relatively inexpensive or relatively cheap. So I like Brazil now. Brazil's gotten beaten up. There's a lot of fundamental issues. The Bolsonaro being brought up on crimes against humanity for how he dealt with COVID. It's catastrophic. In terms of how he's dealt with that for the Brazilian people. And so we're seeing a lot of pressure there from geopolitical risks, from outside risks, from talking about nationalization. So, emerging markets still very attractive because there's lots of bad news rippling through them. A few weeks ago, we talked about Chinese internet stocks, and everyone hated them. It was uninvestable. Woo, look at that. Market's starting to turn higher. These Chinese internet stocks are starting to work already. So again, where are we cautious? Large cap tech stocks, US. You've got, wow, what happened with Apple this week, and in terms of the earnings potential of some of these companies like Snapchat and Facebook that rely on the learning from how we, Google around and page around the internet, and they're not going to be able to do that as much going forward. Big hits to revenue for a lot of these guys that rely on that, snooping on what the consumer's doing. So big changes to big cap tech, lots of pressures, geopolitical, governmental, It's got to be an area of major underperformance. Got to love long tech long term, or big tech long term, but right now, risk off there, and money's got to feed into the places that are getting no love right now. And we see that a lot in international and emerging markets. So glad to be doing this conversation this week with my good friend David Rosenberg, and very special treat for our Berman's Call YouTube followers. We've arranged for a free month trial of Rosie's research. I've been reading Rosie for as far back as you want to go. When I was at a competing firm and he was writing his reports for another bank here in Canada, I was reading them. I think he's the best forensic economist on the planet. So love it. Sign up for a free month of Rosie's research. You won't regret it. It's great media analysis of so many things going on in the world. So look forward to that, and tune in this Thursday for our chat on inflation, transitory or not. Have a great week, everyone.